跑开干！你在我毫不知情的情况下，把这钱全部转了，我真的很气愤。
The furious man before us is named Dong Seong. A year ago, Dong Seong was diagnosed with nasopharyngeal cancer, and now his ongoing treatment requires a large sum of money. When he went to withdraw money to pay the hospital bills, he discovered that the balance of his account, which had originally held more than 800,000 yuan, was down to just 1.52 yuan. The shock left him stunned. He immediately thought of his wife, Jiang Xiaoling, since only the two of them knew the password. After checking every transaction on the bank statement, he discovered that his wife, Jiang Xiaoling, had secretly transferred the 800,000 yuan in multiple installments without his knowledge. He remembered that he had asked for the money to be transferred into his account, as he didn't trust leaving it with her, and he demanded that the card be linked to his own phone number. But he trusted her completely and ended up linking it all to her phone instead. Because Jiang Xiaoling had insisted on binding her number to the card, she was able to make repeated transfers without Dong Seong knowing. Thinking back on her strange behavior over the past year, Dong Seong felt a chill run down his spine. Why had Jiang Xiaoling secretly transferred such a large amount of money from her cancer-stricken husband? Had she truly stopped caring about him? The reporter followed Dong Seong home, where he furiously confronted Jiang Xiaoling, asking why she had taken the money behind his back. Jiang Xiaoling did not answer directly and refused to reveal where the money had gone. Moreover, she completely denied the amount her husband mentioned. Dong Seong told the reporter that since his diagnosis, Jiang Xiaoling had contributed only 40,000 yuan toward medical expenses and had cared for him in the hospital for just 2 weeks. After that, she stopped visiting and never provided financial support again. It was Dong Seong's parents who paid more than 200,000 yuan, which stabilized his condition. Now, facing the costs of continued treatment, Jiang Xiaoling still refused to contribute another cent. She expected Dong Seong's parents to cover the future medical expenses, which left him deeply disappointed. In her view, her own family had already contributed enough. In fact, a few years earlier, the Dong family had received about 2 million yuan in compensation for a land requisition. Out of this, more than 800,000 yuan was given to Dong Seong, and 350,000 yuan was used to buy a house. Now, with his illness, his parents had already spent another 200,000 yuan, and yet Jiang Xiaoling still expected them to bear the costs of his future treatments. Dong Seong could not accept this, especially since his parents were already in their 70s. As their son, he also had to consider their quality of life in old age. Jiang Xiaoling, however, had her own version of events. She claimed that since the beginning of his illness, she had spent 40,000 yuan, and after a year of family expenses, only 400,000 yuan remained. According to her, the initial amount had never been 800,000 yuan but rather 400,000, and now, with expenses, it had diminished further. Dong Seong laughed bitterly, shaking his head, clearly not believing her. He questioned how she could have spent 400,000 yuan in just 1 year and where the money had gone. Faced with her husband's questions, Jiang Xiaoling continued avoiding direct answers. She told the reporter that she wanted Dong Seong to ask his parents for money for the treatment. I told him that if he behaved better, there wouldn't be so much conflict. If I asked for money, it would cause problems. The money would be for his treatment, not for me. She knew her in-laws had nearly 1 million yuan, while the money she held needed to be saved for the children and for her own future. This suggestion was firmly rejected by Dong Seong, and the couple argued, each sticking to their position. What hurt Dong Seong most was that Jiang Xiaoling gathered his parents, relatives, and even village committee members to discuss his medical expenses. When the elders asked why she wasn't using her own money, Jiang Xiaoling quarreled with them, openly disrespecting family hierarchy. Dong Seong believed that instead of thinking about the best treatment plan for his illness, his wife was trying to morally manipulate his parents and relatives into paying the bills. To him, this was unacceptable, and it made their already fragile marriage even more unsustainable. 16 years ago, Jiang Xiaoling and Dong Seong had met through an arranged marriage. Their life together had always been full of ups and downs. Dong Seong, a long-distance bus driver, spent little time at home. Jiang Xiaoling often heard rumors about his supposed affairs. Whenever he returned home, arguments inevitably followed. Tired of this cycle, Dong Seong once proposed divorce, but Jiang Xiaoling refused. When he was diagnosed with cancer a year ago, she promised to do everything to save him, which moved him deeply. However, after just 2 weeks of care, her attitude changed. She told him, Ask your mother to come take care of you. I have the children at home, I'm too busy, and I don't have any more money. From then on, she stopped paying hospital bills, made secret phone calls, and eventually stopped visiting altogether, asking his mother to take over. Later, Dong Seong discovered that the 800,000 yuan in his account had been transferred by Jiang Xiaoling. Her actions broke his heart. He demanded that she return the money for his treatment, but Jiang Xiaoling remained unmoved, saying that he wasn't thinking about her and the children's future. Since Dong Seong refused to ask his parents for money, she decided to confront them herself. When she arrived at their home, she was coldly received. After waiting 4 hours, his parents finally appeared, but the situation escalated when Jiang Xiaoling's mother and Dong Seong's mother got into a physical fight, creating chaos. To prevent things from worsening, the reporter asked Jiang Xiaoling and her mother to leave. Dong Seong's father then voiced his dissatisfaction with his daughter-in-law, stating that as a wife, she had the responsibility to pay for her husband's treatment. He estimated she still had nearly 1 million yuan and believed she should use that money for her husband's care. If it wasn't enough, he would help cover the rest. He also accused her of using the grandchildren as an excuse to hold on to the money. Dong Seong's parents had a very negative view of her. His father revealed that, just 3 days after the wedding, Jiang Xiaoling had told them she would not be responsible for their care in old age or even their funerals. This had deeply hurt them, and since then, they had never liked her. Speaking about his son's marriage, the father said that although his son had a wife, it was as if he didn't. He explained that after exhausting days of work, Dong Seong would come home late, only to find no hot meal waiting for him. Jiang Xiaoling and the children would eat well, but nothing was saved for him. He still had to cook and do laundry by himself. Out of pity, his parents rented a place near his workplace and cooked for him there, which only further reduced his visits home. As the couple's relationship grew colder, his parents did not attempt to mediate but instead created conditions that kept him away, which fueled Jiang Xiaoling's resentment toward them. She confronted them multiple times but was always scolded and dismissed. This time, after the physical fight between her mother and her mother-in-law over the medical expenses, Jiang Xiaoling realized she no longer had any standing in the Dong family. Back home, she laid everything out for her husband. She said the 2 children could choose whom they wanted to stay with. If they chose their father, she would give him the 400,000 yuan. The house, being marital property, could be sold, and she would give him half the value for his treatment. If his parents refused to pay the medical expenses, she would file for divorce. Furious, Dong Seong responded, "I need this money for treatment, to save my life. That's what I want." He laughed bitterly, remembering how in the past, when he wanted a divorce, she had refused, probably because she knew about the compensation they were due to receive. Now, with him sick and needing money, she not only transferred all the funds but also proposed divorce. Looking at the woman he had lived with for 16 years, Dong Seong felt overwhelming sadness. He realized the saying was true. Husband and wife are like birds sharing the same forest, but when disaster strikes, they fly their separate ways. He now understood that Jiang Xiaoling had long been planning how to escape responsibility and walk away unscathed. Would Dong Seong accept Jiang Xiaoling's divorce proposal? They scheduled a mediation at the local office for the next day, but Jiang Xiaoling waited in vain. Dong Seong never showed up. When she called him, he told her there would be no mediation. He intended to file for divorce directly in court to protect his rights. Upon hearing this, Jiang Xiaoling realized her carefully laid plans were collapsing, and her eyes filled with disappointment.
In the face of a gravely ill husband, this is not just about money. It is about responsibility, duty, and humanity. The role of a wife is not simply to be present in moments of comfort, but to support and stand by her husband in times of greatest hardship. Shifting that responsibility onto elderly parents, who have already sacrificed so much, is nothing but selfishness and escape. If you had truly dedicated yourself to saving your husband, don't you think his family would have seen it and naturally offered their support? After all, the parents' inheritance will inevitably go to the children in the future. What they wanted to see was your attitude in the present. And there is a cruel irony in this story. When it comes to money, those who cling too tightly, believing they are securing their future, often end up losing everything: the respect, the trust, the marriage, and even their dignity. And what do you think? Should money speak louder than the vows of marriage? That's where today's story ends. See you in the next video.